I've used a lot of meal services, but Hungry Root truly stands out because it's built around the way real families live and eat. They don't just send meal kits. They personalize your grocery cart and meal plan based on your preferences and dietary goals. All I had to do was take a short quiz, and right away, their smart cart technology started building a cart that fit how we eat. Now, each week feels easier, like someone else is doing the thinking for me. I've been focused on cleaner eating lately, and I love that Hungry Root keeps out over 200 additives, including things like high fructose corn syrup and artificial sweeteners. Their meats are hormone and antibiotic free, and the produce options include organic and non GMO picks. They also stock brands I already trust, like Oatly, Vital Farms, and Harmless Harvest. One of our favorite meals has been the teriyaki salmon with green beans, light, flavorful, and done in 12 minutes flat. Plus, I've noticed we waste less food, spend less time shopping, and even save money by skipping those impulse grocery buys. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/Dr. Meg and use code Dr. Meg. That's hungryroot.com/Dr. Meg. Code Dr. Meg to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/Dr. Meg. Code Dr. Meg. Welcome to Parenting Great Kids. I'm Dr. Meg Meeker, and today we have a wonderful guest who's been here before, and he's sure to bring some incredible insights, inspiring not just men out there, but anyone listening to lead an extraordinary life. Larry Hagner is the creative force behind the Dad Edge podcast. It has an impressive 40 million downloads, and he has 4 best-selling books. And today, we're going to be talking about the spirit of fatherhood. Larry has really dug into fatherhood and personal growth, motivating men to live legendary lives.
So the way the book starts out is we just unpack everything that's on your mind and heart that you're afraid of, right? All those fears that you just don't say out loud, that none of us say out loud, they're all in that first chapter. I mean, I even start off the book, Spirit of Fatherhood, with what's probably going through a man's mind right before his wife delivers. Like, I'm excited. I'm super happy. Like, this is going to be awesome. But, oh my gosh, what about this? What about our finances? What about our marriage? What about communication? How am I going to balance my career and my kids? Like, how do I know how to guide them? I don't even know what I'm doing yet.
Welcome to Parenting Great Kids. Here's your host, Dr. Meg Meeker.
Welcome to Parenting Great Kids, Larry. It's so great to have you back.
Meg, what's going on? It's so good to see you again. Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
You bet. The Dad Edge. You have the Dad Edge ministry or program, if you will. You have the Dad Edge podcast, and you've been doing this dad stuff for 10 years. What made you start, and why is what you do so important?
Well, I kind of like to make a joke out of this one because it's just, which is like, one day I just woke up and it was early on a Sunday and I opened up the blinds and the sun just hit me just right. And I just had this epiphany, and everything there was to know about being a good father and husband was bestowed upon me. And I just had to share it with the world, which is a total lie.
Don't you wish, I tell you. Yeah. When you're a grandparent, you start to sort of figure it out so that you can tell your kids, who won't listen to you, by the way. But it's hard, isn't it? I mean, being a mom is hard, and we get so much more support than dads because we talk. You know, if we have a problem with being a parent or a mom, we go find a friend, we talk, and then we say, okay, how to solve it. Dads don't do that, though. Why do dads not reach out to other dads as easily as mothers do you think?
I'll go back to your first question first with how Dad Edge got started, and then I'm happy to answer that because I was totally joking, obviously, by the way. But Dad Edge got started. It was about 11 years ago, and to be truly honest and transparent, I think it really started with my childhood because having a father figure in my life growing up, I spent half my childhood without a father figure, and then I spent the other half with somebody who was there, who was just, it was basically a revolving door of just toxic men and relationships. My mom was married a total of 3 times growing up, and it was always the same type of guy, just a partier, and he drank a lot and all that. So it was just, there were several men in and out, and none of them were really a great experience whatsoever. The interesting thing about my story, though, is my mom and biological father got married pretty young. They had me about 4 years into the marriage. About a year after I was born in 1975, they got divorced, and he left after that. And I really didn't have any contact with him. Serendipitously, though, I ran into him when I was 12, and I had no idea. I'd never met him before or anything like that. And we had this relationship for about 6 months. And he was remarried at the time, had a 2-year-old son, another one on the way. And we hung out like every week. I was so excited because at that point, my mom had already been through 2 marriages and 2 divorces, and he was one of them. And so I was so excited that he came back into my life, and he was a part of my life for 6 months. And then I think things got kind of complicated, and we parted ways again. And then my mom continued to date really toxic men. She got married one more time when I was 18. And then something really interesting happened when I was 30. I was sitting in a coffee shop here in St. Louis. I was married, had my first son on the way, who's now 18. That blows my mind. And this gentleman came walking into the coffee shop, and he caught my eye, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's my dad. And that interaction, that serendipitous meeting, turned into what's now about 18, 19-year relationship. He's still married to the same woman. I have 2 younger half brothers. But my childhood was very chaotic when it came to dadhood, right? And I desperately, desperately wanted a dad. And I kept saying to myself when I was a kid, I was like, when I'm a dad, I'm going to do it different. When I'm a dad, I'm going to be on point. When I get married, it's going to be one time. And I'll tell you, having a laundry list and a blueprint of what things not to do as a kid, I just felt completely and totally unprepared for fatherhood. And I was your typical guy, the one you kind of described. I didn't talk to other men, like everything was good, fine. And I was a medical device rep. So it was in a lucrative career, and things looked okay on the outside, but I was crumbling, Meg, on the inside. I was just lost. And I wasn't an abusive father by any means, but I really wasn't engaged. I was sort of like in limbo. I was like half in, half out. And Dad Edge got started because I definitely made a promise to myself, because I was physically hit quite a bit growing up, that I was like, you know what, I'm never going to hit my kids out of anger. And then in 2011, I broke that promise, and my son, who's 16 now, was 4 at the time, and he stepped out of line as any 4-year-old would, and I turned him around, I swatted him on the rear end, and I, right in the midst of doing that, I was like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? Well, then he toppled over and fell, and this image is still burned on my brain. I was like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? And I went to go pick him up, and I reached out my hands. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And he rolled over and he did this. He closed his eyes and he put up his hands like, please don't hurt me. I was like, oh my gosh, what have I done? So that was actually how Dad Edge got started. It wasn't an epiphany. I was obviously joking about that. It got started with one of the darkest moments. And from then on out, I was like, you know what? I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm tired of not knowing what I'm doing. So I'm going to go on this journey of just learning. And I just surrendered. And that's how Dad Edge got started. I was like, I'm just going to start a blog, and I'm going to start learning things. I'm going to be a student, and I'm going to interview really smart people like yourself who's been on my show and learn from them. And that's how Dad Edge gets started. It definitely wasn't pretty.
Well, I love your honesty. And I think there's so many fathers in your situation, and they're walking around in so much pain. They feel so much guilt and shame. But like you, they're in a career or a job, and they need to look great on the outside and well put together. But on the inside, they hurt so badly. Often, fathers who have been abused as kids or experience, their dad yelling at them or taking off on them or whatever, come into being a parent with a preload. Here are my experiences as a son, and want to break that during their early parenting years. But subconsciously, those preload experiences can sort of drive you. How do men break out of that, like you breaking out of the hitting and other men breaking out of this sense that I'm going to leave my child and I was left and I don't want to do it, but I don't know what else to do. How do men actually learn how to break the pain from their past and prevent it from spilling into their life as a dad?
I think that's like probably the biggest, most burning question that a man could possibly ask himself or be asked. So I think that's such a good question. And I think the perception is wrong, to be honest. Now that I've been in this space and I've been doing this work, and I still fall into the trap that I'm about ready to explain. And I think the perception is wrong. The perception is, and by the way, let me add this to it as well. If you ask any man, you peel back all those onion layers, right? You get to his heart. And what's so important to a man and a father is that he gets this thing right. But at the same time, we also feel so unprepared for it in a way, right? We might be good in some areas, but we feel overall just like, man, like I don't know what's lurking around the corner. I don't know if I'm prepared. I don't know if I'm worthy. I don't know if all these fears that we have because we don't know how to do it. I mean, you're a pediatrician. You went to medical school, right? And the perception, I think, is this: anything that we're ever good at, even in like in our careers or in our trade, or you went to medical school, there's been training and there's been skills and there's been things that you had to learn in order to do that job. And I think when it comes to marriage and when it comes to parenting, the perception in a man's mind and heart is, well, I should know how to do this naturally. And if I don't, then I'm weak, or I'm this, or I'm that. And when I screw up, I'm not good enough, and I'm obviously not cut out. It's all these things that we're saying to ourselves that nobody else can hear. And I think the perception is this, like, wait a second, I'm a human being, and every human being learns how to do something well before they do it well. And when you're thrusted into fatherhood and you don't take that time to learn, or you don't surrender that ego, because my ego is like, well, I should know how to do this, and that's our ego talking. But as soon as we're like, wait a second, if I want to be a doctor, that means I have to go to medical school, so I have to go learn it. Or if I want to be a martial artist, I got to go to the dojo and learn it, so I got to go learn it. But being a father, I should just know how to do that. And that's wrong. I really feel that that's wrong. I'm like, well, wait a second. We can actually learn these skills to be a better father, to be a better husband, and to be a better man. And by the way, that makes it a much more fulfilling journey for us. We're not beating ourselves up so much between our ears or in our heart. So I think the perception is like, wait, I'm a human being. And you know what? It's okay for me to learn this stuff. It doesn't have to come naturally. It's not a ding on me as far as like, I'm a weak person or I'm unworthy to do this job because I don't know how to do it naturally. Most of us just don't, right? But we can learn.
I have to take a quick break, but before I go, I want to invite you to visit drmegmeeker.com, where you can find a plethora of resources for your parenting journey. Explore our...
Some days, parenting feels like chasing moments that never quite land. You ask a question, they shrug. You try again, they look at their screen. And you wonder, why is this so hard? That's why I love FamGabs. It's a 70-card deck created by a child therapist who spent 16 years working directly with families, helping parents and kids break through the awkward one-word answers and really connect. The questions are open-ended, thoughtfully chosen, and designed to get your child talking and keep the conversation going. There are even bonus cards just for parents to help you build your confidence in your connection toolbox. If you've ever wished for a better way to understand your child or just to have more meaningful conversations as a family, FamGabs is such a gift. Search FamGabs on Amazon and use promo code DrMegPod during checkout to get 10% off your order. That's FamGabs on Amazon. Use promo code DrMegPod and get 10% off your order. You know that moment when your child lights up because something finally clicks? That's what every parent wants, to see their child thrive. But when school just isn't the right fit, that joy can fade. That's why I want to tell you about K-12 powered schools. These are tuition-free, accredited online public schools for kindergarten through 12th grade. They're designed to meet your child where they are so they can learn at their own pace in their own space and a curriculum that fits their unique learning style. And here's what sets it apart. This isn't homeschooling. You're not the teacher. K-12's state-certified online educators are trained to make lessons interactive and engaging using innovative technology. And your child still gets social experiences, clubs, extracurriculars, even in-person events. K-12 has helped over 3 million families give their kids the tools to thrive, and they've been doing it for more than 25 years. It could be exactly what your child needs. Visit k12.com/Dr. Meg to find a tuition-free K-12 powered school near you and enroll today. That's k12./DRMEG, all caps.
Our courses, join our free coaching webinar, and take our parent personality quiz. We'll be right back. So I'm a 35-year-old dad, and I've got 3 kids, and I'm lost as far as parenting and being a dad. My wife is frustrated with me, so I come to Dad Edge, or I pick up your book, The Spirit of Fatherhood. And where are you going to start with me, and where are you hoping to end with me? So start us on that journey of, okay, this guy needs help. I need to start with the basics. What are those basics?
Sure. Great question. So the way the book starts out is we just unpack everything that's on your mind and heart that you're afraid of, right? All those fears that you just don't say out loud, that none of us say out loud, they're all in that first chapter. I mean, I even start off the book, Spirit of Fatherhood, with what's probably going through a man's mind right before his wife delivers. Like, I'm excited. I'm super happy. Like, this is going to be awesome. But oh my gosh, what about this? What about our finances? What about our marriage? What about communication? How am I going to balance my career and my kids? Like, how do I know if I'm even doing this right? How do I know if I'm leading right? How do I know if I'm creating this connection with my kids to where they're not afraid of me and they want to come to me, right? How do I know how to guide them? I don't even know what I'm doing yet. So like that first chapter is like literally just flushing all that stuff out right to the surface and just saying like, hey, if you're feeling any of these things or all of these things, guess what? You're in great company because we all do. So I think it's really just bringing the things out that we're most afraid of to the surface and just normalizing it because it is normal. Like you don't have a kid and raise another human being without all these fears. Every guy likes to answer every question, good, fine, or busy, right? Those 3 words, those 3 answers.
Good, fine, or busy.
Good, fine, or busy, right?
Yeah. Well, that's how I started off our chat. Boy,
right.
You're a busy man. Yeah. And it's almost, and that's a compliment because you've got a lot of good stuff going on and you're busy. But it's hard for women to get inside of a man, and it's hard for mothers, wives, to get inside of their husbands' heads to see the insecurities or the concerns or worries. So the wife of the 35-year-old with the 3 kids, what does she need to know? What are the 3 or 4 biggest concerns or worries that her husband has that she needs to know about?
Number 1, it might feel that your husband and the father of your kids is being distant, right? Or we're I don't want to use the word cold, but it's like, I've got it all together, right?
It feels like that, honestly.
Right.
Yeah.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But there's a tremendous pressure cooker that's going on in the mind of a man at all times. And it's like, am I providing enough? Financially, physically, emotionally, spiritually, am I enough? Constantly. That question circles us all the time. And the moment we make a mistake, big or small, it's almost like a man is like not looking for proof, but it's like, there it is again, right? I just yelled at my kids. I'm obviously not a patient dad, or I'm not bringing home enough money. So like, I'm obviously not a good provider, right? So these are the things that we're thinking that we don't say out loud. And our wives are probably like, is everything okay? And you're like, oh yeah, I'm fine. I'm good, right? But inside, we're hurting a bit because we feel like this tremendous pressure. So that's number 1. Number 2, you nailed it when you talked about how the wives and the women, they are unbelievable at building strong, deep, connected friendships and community with other women. I mean, they talk about these things. But I heard this quote, and I can't remember exactly who said it, but most men will live a life of quiet desperation and isolation. Not necessarily physically, because physically we're surrounded by people all the time. Mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, we are usually doing life all by ourselves. And, isolation is the enemy of excellence. And most men are navigating their fatherhood journey like that, or even when we get around other guys, like the conversations that we're having is work, school, kids' activities, things going on in sports or in politics, and that's about it. The conversations aren't like, hey, how are you and Jessica doing? Are you guys communicating well? Are you parenting well? What's your struggle been like lately? How are your kids doing as far as the teenagers go? Like, we're not asking these questions as men. So men are trying to navigate this world all by themselves, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And that will tax a man's energy, right? And it'll tax his fulfillment. So that's another one to know, that your man is probably navigating life alone. And it's also because he might be struggling and he doesn't want anybody else to see it. So in order for everyone else not to see it, he's got to keep everybody kind of out here, right? So I'm just going to keep everybody out here. Everything's fine. Everything's good. Like, I got the car, I got the house, and we're good, right? The other thing too is this: a man truly wants to be a good leader in the family, right? He wants to lead in his marriage. And I'm not talking about from a dictatorship point of view. I'm talking about from a loving point of view, right? A point of view that makes the kids feel like, hey, we're all connected here, right? This is an environment of psychological safety. We can all share in things that have happened in our day or in our mind or in our heart or whatever else. And some of us, most of us, I don't think really know what good looks like, because we weren't brought up like that either. So we're guessing at it. And when you're guessing at something, you don't feel like you have the confidence to execute something flawlessly. Like, you went to medical school, and I'm sure one of the most frustrating things that when you saw a patient is when you're like, I'm not exactly sure what's going on with this patient. Like, I need to do more research or more work. I'm just kind of guessing. But then you see the other patients, you're like, oh yeah, it's this, it's that, right? So I think those are things that is really on the mind and heart of a man. He's not going to say those things usually out loud to his wife, but it's a lot of feeling of unworthiness. Am I doing the right thing? I'm kind of doing this all on my own, and I'm just uncertain about what the right next thing is sometimes.
I'm so glad you pointed that out, because I think from a wife's perspective, and I see this with kids, we interpret men's behavior in the wrong way, usually. For instance, if we find that a husband, I would do this to my husband, that he's not interacting with our kids enough, I would get angry. What is wrong with you? You need to spend more time with the kids. You spend too much time at work. What are you going to do with them on the weekend? And I would hound him. And that would make him pull back, not just from me, but from everybody. Because I think in his mind, he thought, I'm just bad. I'm just a bad father. I mean, why even begin to try to do this? And one of the things that I found is that the good guys, when you sort of push them to do things that they're not doing, they see that as a criticism, because the truth is we are criticizing them. And we go at it the whole wrong way. And so what we end up doing is pushing dads farther away from their kids and farther from us. And I think that women listening to this podcast need to take responsibility for our behavior, because a lot of times the fathers do want to engage with their kids and they do want to spend more time. They don't know how. And so when we see them not engaging, we blame them for it. So how can mothers out there and wives out there listening help fathers engage better without criticizing them?
I think this would probably be best if I shared a story about my own wife. So my wife would insert, things like that when my kids were young, right? When they were really young, right before my son Mason, who is four at the time, now he's 16. It's kind of like what those 4 years were looking like. And I would definitely say that her approach changed a lot, and it changed me. And this is what it looked like. So she would say sometimes, like, 'cause I was working a lot, and I was also doing martial arts, so I was kind of like into my hobbies, because that's what I meant. Like, I wasn't a bad father, like I was abusive, but I was just sort of like, I'd spend time with them, but I also wasn't really engaged in that kind of thing. And my wife would be like, hey, sometimes I feel like a single mom, like, and she would say it in that tone, or she's like, hey, when are you going to be home tonight? Like, are you going to be home for the kids, like to put them to bed and things like that? And you're right. That actually almost drove me. And I didn't know that at the time. I wasn't actually doing that out of spite. I was doing it because I didn't want to deal with that. So I was avoiding. But my wife, I'll never forget that night, because I was really upset when I spanked Mason. And that's when I literally like started dad edge that night. And I was upset. I was crying. And my wife, man, this is good. Hard for me to talk about. I was sitting on the couch and I was like this. And she came up and I just had my hands on my head like this for your viewers who can't see. And I was just slumped in shame. Cause she knew me better than anybody. She knew I was raised like that. She knew I never wanted to do anything like that. But there's one thing I can always say about Jessica, even though like early on in our relationship, I mean, that was 17 years ago, that was going on. But we've evolved, and I'll never forget, it was that night, and I don't think it's ever been the same since, that she came up to me and I thought she was going to like just rip into me. And instead she sat next to me and she rubbed my back. And then she held my, she held my hand, and then she took my face and like pointed it to hers. And she said, I can see you're upset. And I was like, yeah, that's something I just can't even believe I did. And she goes, I'm going to tell you something. She goes, you grew up in a really bad environment. And I know that this is really important to you to get this thing right. And she actually said what you said on my podcast. That's why when you said on my podcast, it hit me so hard. She said, you already have everything in you to be a good dad. You're just not letting yourself do it because you're just not learning how to do it. She's like, what would it look like if you just learned? And I was like, and that was it. But it was met with such compassion. It wasn't nagging or it wasn't mean. And that's the way she's always been since then, which is like, it's just this approach of like, hey, I'm calling you forward. I'm not nagging you. I'm not disrespecting you. I'm not unappreciating you. I am actually calling you forward because I know that you are an amazing human being. You're an amazing man, and you can be even better than you are now. And I'm here to support you in any way possible. I think that approach is so much more fruitful because men actually they don't like being called out in a disrespectful way, but they love to be called forward into the man that they know that they can be.
I love that because I have studied for years child-dad interaction. And I see the same thing, not as severe, happening with dads and children, where children misinterpret their dad's behavior, particularly girls. A dad will be silent, or a dad will say something in a gruff way, but he doesn't even know he's saying it in a gruff way. And the little girl goes, see, he hates me. And I say, your dad doesn't hate you. You're misinterpreting, what he is saying. But I think it's really important for women to shift their perspective a bit, give dads the benefit of the doubt, assume they're trying their best, and work on the assumption or the belief they want to be a good dad. Because I think that we come at men a lot of times, you just don't care. You just don't care. You don't love your kids. You don't love me. And we train our kids to say that. But I think that just flipping it around a little bit, assuming that this man really wants to be a better dad, he really wants to be closer, he really wants to get this thing right, and our job is to help him get there. That's a game changer. I mean, that was a game changer for me because mothers are very competitive, really competitive. We're very controlling. And we do not want you to say anything to our kids that we don't like, or we're going to let you know about it. So I love that story of your wife because she saw you and she saw into your heart and she thought, wait a minute, this is a good guy who is hurting as he should because of his growing up. And my job is to help him, not to push him, but just to sit beside him and say, you've got this. Because you're right. I always try to tell dads, you have all the wiring. All the wiring is there. It's in you. But what you need is somebody to come along and just sort of zap a little wiring here and zap a little wiring there. Because if men are great at anything, it's this. When you point out a problem and you help them find a solution, they're off and going. Nothing complicated. Women, do the blame game and all this, but men kind of want to know, okay, I made this mistake. Now what do I do? Tell me how to fix it. And they'll go do it. So what do you think? Give me a father's perspective on how his kids perceive them. Do dads fundamentally believe that their kids respect them, that they look down on them? How do dads feel their kids see them? Because I'm sure that dads complain about their kids like kids complain to me about their dads.
I can just tell you some of the things that I've heard, obviously, over the years, and I'm sure you have too, right? That, we've worked, just in the past 8 years, we've worked very intimately with over 4,000 men who have come and done life with us and what we call Dad Edge Alliance. And that's our community. And that's the summit that you virtually spoke at and all those guys there. But the stories that I've heard is, my kids don't respect me. They're annoyed with me. When I ask them questions, they give me one-word answers. When I try to talk to them, they're just in their phone. Or they'll say things like, Dad, you just don't understand. Another thing that I've heard, I have 2 teenagers now. I have an 18-year-old and a 16-year-old. I also have a 10 and 8-year-old. And I remember so many men, including even my relatives, would be like, oh, just wait until they're teenagers. They're not going to want a thing to do with you. You're going to annoy them. They're going to avoid you. They're not going to like you, all these other things. And I'm here to tell you that I think if you do the right things, right? If you actually read Dr. Meg Meeker's book, especially the Hero book, right? If you're doing the right things and you are connecting with them, because I think if we do not have connection, we don't have influence. And I think that's one of the biggest missing gaps is with men is like, I don't know how to connect with my kid, but it's not for a lack of desire. I can tell you, like, I'm a fan of dads, right? I'm a fan of dads because I know dads' hearts, and dads truly want to connect with their kids. Like they're like, when a dad asks, which by the way, this is not a great question by any means, but when a dad's like, how was your day? It's because they're like, please tell me about your day. Please tell me everything. I really want to let me into your world, right? But instead they get an answer of like, good, fine, right? And it's those one-word answers. But what the dad really doesn't understand is he probably just hasn't learned the skill set of like, how can I get really, really creative with my questions to bring the best out of my kids, to start a good conversation so they'll storytell and let me in so I can connect to them. And I think that's one of the biggest missing pieces is, so to answer your question is, yes, there is that perception there, but it's not for a lack of men really wanting to connect with their kids. They just don't understand, like, how do I go get that?
You talk about in Spirit of Fatherhood, the whole idea of creating a home environment that is safe and warm, and you learn patience and empathy and encouragement. We only have a few minutes left, but tell me a couple of ways, 3 ways, practically, that a man can do to begin connecting with his kids. Because my experience is just yours. Dads come to their kids and they go, see, they don't like me. They don't want to hug me. They don't want to talk to me. And so they retreat and they get discouraged because they don't think that connection with their teen is possible. And they don't think that their teen doesn't want it, which is absolutely not true. So give us a few practical tips, if you could, on how to begin connecting with your kids of any ages.
There's so many different ways, and there's a lot of ways I list out in the book. But if I could give your listeners like literally the easiest things to do, and I can do it quickly, is ask your kids 3 questions every day. And there's a psychological reason behind all of these questions, and I'll quickly explain them. But this is the lowest hanging fruit, the easiest thing to do, and it will create a connection with your kids. You talk about psychological safety and connection and empathy and all these things. The rules for these questions are they are conversation starters, number one. Number two, this is a way that you can bring the best out in your kids. Also, for them to tell you something that they really kind of don't want to tell you that they're afraid of, and for you to respond. And also for you to really be interested in their life so you become really more interesting to them. So the first question is this. Don't ask, how was your day? Ask them a question that's going to bring out the positive in some way, shape, or form. One of the easiest question to do is, tell me about the best part of your day. Tell me why it was so meaningful to you. They can't answer that question with fine, good, or busy. And here's what they'll do. They'll start to think, and they'll be like, hey, I got my science test back today. I got a B+ on it. I studied forever for that thing. I got a B+ on it. I am so glad it's over. It's I'm relieved. And the way to respond to that is oh my gosh, man, that is amazing. You must feel amazing. So I make sure that whatever they're feeling, they get that you in there, because when they're proud of something or they're happy about something or excited about something, I like to label that emotion with, man, you must be so excited, right? So that's number one, because what it does is it trains your kid to bring out, their own gratitude. But when kids are excited to tell you something, that's where that connection really happens. Because think about it, even as adults, right? If something good happens to us, you call your best friend on their phone, you're like, "Hey, you're not going to believe what happened." You're so excited because you get to connect with somebody on some good news. So that's number one. The second question is where empathy, psychological safety, your kids get to be teenagers. They're going to tell you things that we would never tell our kids. I've got 2 of them. And some of the things that they tell me, I'm like, I can't believe that they just told me that. But it's been day after day, rep after rep of asking. And when I say, what did you fail at today? Or I'll even ask, what's something happened today you're not proud of? Or what's something that challenged you today and how'd you get through it? It's one of those questions where it's a low point, right? And the reason I like that question, but the most important thing is that you respond correctly, right? So when I ask that question, I'm ready for something big. And sometimes it is big. And they're like, I got an F on the science test. I got it back today. Now, me growing up, I got an F on the science test. You just get blasted, right? What's wrong with you? You got an F on the science. We don't get Fs in this house. You were grounded. Give me your phone. You're not seeing any of your friends until this grade comes up, right? And you just make a mental note. Okay, dad's not the person to talk to. But instead, I like to guide my kids through critical things that they're going through more questions. So first of all, I usually praise them for being courageous. I'm like, ooh, man, I bet that was tough to tell me, huh? And they're like, yeah, it was. I'll be like, well, okay, let's talk about this for a second. And I'll use this voice tone, right, of curiosity. I'll be like, let's talk about this for a second. If you had to prepare for that test all over again, because an F is not the end of the world. We can learn from this, right? What would you do different? And then all of a sudden they'll start thinking, they'll be like, you know what? I didn't study chapters 4, 5, and 6. I only studied 1, 2, and 3. I only studied half the material. I probably would study all of it. And I probably would study a little bit longer. To be honest, I really wasn't prepared. And then I'll be like, you know what? That's great awareness. Great awareness. And that's a huge learning point. So you'd be more prepared. And they're like, yeah. I'll be like, well, great. Well, when's your next test? And they'll be like, well, I actually have one next Friday. I'll be like, well, based on what you've learned, what would you do different? And then they'll be like, well, I do this, this, and this. And then I'll be like, well, man, that sounds like a great plan. Sounds like you learned. How can I best support you? And they'll be like, and they might say something like, I'm good, I got it. Or be like, hey, actually, can you check in on me? Or can you quiz me or whatever? And then after they get ready for the test or they take the test and it all goes better, you're like, see, you did it. And sometimes my kids will come up to me and be like, thank you so much for helping me. And I'm like, I didn't. I was like, you did all of it. You figured it out. So that's question number 2. Question number 3 is, what are you most excited about tomorrow? Or what are you most excited about this week? I like to end that conversation of those series of questions with something really, really good, because I want a breadcrumb of a way that I can have another conversation with them. So if they tell me, they're like, oh, Dad, I got track tryouts tomorrow, the 100-meter dash. I'm really nervous. So when they come home that next day, I'll be like, dude, come on, man. What happened? Tryouts. Let's go. What happened, right? Because as soon as I ask them about something that's big going on in their life that they're excited about, they know that I'm interested, right? Which causes even more connection. So those three questions and the reasons why might be really helpful.
I think it's fabulous advice because, I think one of the greatest teaching tools you can use with your kids, whether it's a big problem or a little problem, is ask questions and listen to the answer. And I do believe that dads are better at staying quiet and listening to the answer, whatever comes. Because as mothers, what we do is we ask a question to set us up to correct them and tell them what we really want them to know. Why are you dating this guy? She starts answering the question, and we are formulating in our mind an answer for her on why she shouldn't be dating the guy. So we're really not listening. But what you're talking about is asking questions so that you understand what your kids are going through. You have their interests at heart, and you're communicating to them that you like them. And I think I'll often say, who in your life to kids loves you? Well, I don't know. My parents, because they're supposed to. But then I say, well, who likes you? And they stare at me. Well, my parents love me, I guess, but they don't like me. Kids need to be liked. And so that's what I'm getting from what you're saying there, I think is wonderful. My guest is Larry Hagner. He is the founder of The Dad Edge. He is the author of The Spirit of Fatherhood, his latest book. And he is just a wealth of incredible information and tips and teaching that goes deep for the dads who really want it, which they do want it. And I would encourage everybody to go to the Dad Edge. Larry, tell us about your podcast and where people can find you.
So you can find me at thedadedge.com. That's where all of our free resources are. We've got a resource there for 21 Days to an Extraordinary Marriage, as well as some parenting resources there for you as well. Podcast. You can download the Dad Edge podcast wherever you download podcasts. I think I can't even keep up with all these channels anymore, Meg. There's so many podcast channels out there, but where you could just search it up and it will literally be everywhere. And we also have the Dad Edge YouTube channel for those of you guys who like to consume content via video and not just audio.
Love it. Larry, you are a gem. Thank you so much for joining me today. And hey, if you need coaching, I am here for you. Visit me at meekerparenting.com/coaching or write to us with your questions so I can answer them on a future Ask Dr. Meg episode. Thanks for tuning in today. And until next time, please remember that great kids are raised, not born.